In 2003, the Detroit Pistons drafted a 7-footer
Darko Milicic,
second overall, right after the Cavs drafted LeBron. It was quite possibly the worst draft pick ever. Milicic wasn't the worst player in history, but the next 3 players selected after him
Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Dwyane Wade from March.
It leaves us all wondering what could have been. The Pistons probably shouldn't have even had the chance to pick that high in 2003 to begin with. And that's where things begin to get a little messy. Their manager at the time was Joe Dumars, who admittedly blew the decision.
And of all the great, phenomenal things that Joe Dumars has done, the one stain on his career is that he passed on Carmelo Anthony and drafted Darko Milicic.
And that drafting Darko led to the Pistons completely changing their scouting process afterwards.
After I drafted Darko, from that point on, the amount of background we do on every single player that you see us draft is ridiculous. We do as much more background than any other team in the NBA because of that.
What did he mean by that, you ask? What was so flawed about the Pistons drafting process in 2003? We'll get to that, but first, to give the selection some context, we have to consider how Detroit got the pick in the first place. During the 2001-02 season leading up to the draft, the Pistons won 50 games before getting swept in the conference finals by the Nets. So they were way better than most lottery teams in history. However, back in '97, the Vancouver Grizzlies were coming off a 14-win season. They were awful in their second year of existence. The Grizz were clearly far from being competitive yet. They traded away a conditional first-round pick for a 35-year-old power forward named Otis Thorpe, who had averaged about 13 points per game for the Pistons and only ended up playing about half a season for Vancouver. The condition attached to the deal was that the Grizzlies were going to have to sacrifice a first-rounder between 2nd overall and 18th overall by 2003. Since the Grizzlies continued to suck, they picked between 2 and 6 every season and opted to keep their pick every season. By 2003, they had no choice.
Stolen by Ray Williams.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Interior. The backdoor cuts, trying to move a little bit more without.
They were going to have to sacrifice the pick unless they won the lottery and earned the rights to LeBron James, the most highly touted prospect possibly ever. Had Vancouver never initially threw a lottery pick in the garbage, the Memphis Grizzlies would have had the opportunity to draft 2nd overall in the loaded 2003 draft. And Jerry West made it clear as day that he was not interested in Milicic, who opted not to play when he came to watch him in Europe. Memphis would have selected Carmelo Anthony and teamed up with Pau Gasol and Shane Battier. Who knows how that could have changed history as we know it. Instead, Detroit won the lottery. It couldn't have gone any better for them. But Joe Dumars was in a weird spot. His team was already very competitive and on the up and up, with Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, and Tayshaun Prince playing the backcourt and small forward positions. They were already set. And then they had Ben Wallace at center too. What the team really needed was a power forward. They were losing their starter Clifford Robinson to free agency and had a young Mehmet Okur developing. Whether the Pistons were willing to admit it or not, they were likely tempted into drafting's most notorious drafting sin. Don't draft for need. Even after Carmelo's historical run in the NCAA tournament for Syracuse, many scouts still considered Milicic the second best player available. He was already playing professional basketball, and though his stats weren't extraordinary, his athleticism was off the charts. At 7 feet, the Yugoslavian was incredibly coordinated and powerful. He had long arms, could run the floor, and shoot. His defense was even more impressive, a lethal shot blocker. On top of that, video access was limited at the time. Chad Ford, a journalist for ESPN, was one of the first to make the trip down to Yugoslavia to meet Darko in person. He asked him to compare himself to an NBA player, expecting him to mention someone like Dirk Nowitzki or Vlade Divac, Europeans. But instead, Milicic mentioned Kevin Garnett as a player he models his game after, an athletic and defensively intensive force of nature. That interview got scouts even more excited about him, and he started climbing up the boards. On the day of the draft lottery, Darko Milicic happened to be in Detroit doing a private workout in their practice facility. Chad Ford, the journalist that was covering him, came over to the Pistons side of the gym and asked Joe Dumars if he wanted to watch Darko's workout. Dumars, along with the team's players and coaches, got to see firsthand how unbelievably gifted Darko was. And without doing much more diligence than that, Joe Dumars was set. He knew he wanted Darko. Not only did he play the right position and fit the bill as a defensive first player, he could conceivably be developed in a bench role since he was so young and inexperienced, which would allow Detroit to contend for a championship without feeling pressured to play their highly touted rookie in the starting lineup. Carmelo claims that the Pistons had told him that they were going to draft him and he was ready to join the talented Pistons team.
Cause I'm like, they promised me, you know what I'm saying? Yo, we taking you. I'm talking all the way up to draft day. You understand? We taking you. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to Detroit.
The Pistons players were equally surprised. After his tournament run, they were all fully convinced that Carmelo had cemented himself as the second pick to LeBron and would be a great fit in Detroit.
The players, we all thought we was taking Melo. We sitting there in front of the draft thing
crazy.
like this, we about to see this number 2 pick, and then we was like, they said Darko, we was like, oh, okay, you know what I'm saying? We was shook.
Rick, what was your honest reaction when the Pistons, they drafted Darko?
When you got Carmelo out there, Carmelo Anthony out there, man, it was hard to pass up on him. Same reaction everybody else had. That was.
With everything taken into account, including the Hall of Fame career Melo put together after getting drafted 3rd by Denver, some people still argue that the Pistons made the right choice by drafting Milicic and essentially wasting the pick. It sounds crazy, but just consider. The Pistons won their championship due to their incredible defense and chemistry. Milicic rode the pine basically his entire rookie year while he developed, and the Pistons traded for Rasheed Wallace, who became the team's starting power forward around the trade deadline. Wallace was instrumental for the Pistons, thanks to his elite defense, something that even at the height of his career was never Carmelo Anthony's strong suit. It's very possible that if Detroit selected Carmelo Anthony and played him at the power forward position, the team would have played an entirely different brand of basketball and would have never traded for Rasheed at the deadline. Would they have still won the 2004 NBA Finals over Shaq and Kobe's Lakers? We'll never know. It could have gone either way. People are quick to say that with Carmelo Anthony that the Pistons would have gone on to become a dynasty, which is entirely possible. He likely would have become a tougher defensive player if he developed behind those tough Pistons vets. But it's doubtful that the Pistons would risk losing that championship, even for the keys to Carmelo's best seasons. In terms of what happened to Milicic and why he became a flop, that's a whole other story. Did he lack the talent? Was it a matter of discipline? He hung around for 2.5 seasons in Detroit. Along the way, analysts continued to rave about his potential.
Darko maxes out. I believe he's the best of the bunch because he's fluid. He could be 7'2". When it's over, he's only 17.
That's right.
What if he was Kevin Garnett?
I'd take him.
Better
I
and bigger.
Yet Darko barely stepped on the floor. His head coach, Larry Brown, was known to be demanding and had an old-school approach. There were several reports that Milicic and Brown clashed. Milicic wanted to handle the rock and shoot from outside, the types of plays that got him drafted so highly in the first place.
Darko wants to be Tony Kukoc. He wants to stand outside and shoot. He said, I want him to be Bill Russell. And he said Darko had no idea who Bill Russell was.
Spent a couple of days in Detroit watching their practices, and you'd be amazed at this kid's athleticism. He absolutely runs like a deer, and watching him in fast break drills is stunning.
Brown's demands were taking a toll on Milicic's mental health and his confidence. In the first 2 seasons in Detroit, Milicic did not get on the court in more games than he did. And when he did get thrown in the game, it was usually during garbage time on an incredibly short leash. In fact, he only played more than 16 minutes in 3 separate games. Truth is, he never got the chance to show what he was capable of doing on the NBA court. But by the time he was done in Detroit, he really didn't have the confidence that he had when he got drafted. He showed glimpses in Minnesota, but looked like he lost love for the game. And that was it. Now he's remembered as possibly the worst pick in NBA history. Just goes to show how one ill-advised move, like trading a future lottery pick for Otis Thorpe, can have such a powerful domino effect on the league for decades to come. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Sports Insight. See you next time.